The stars looked the same as they always did, cold, distant, and eternal. Commander Rovik stood at the viewing window of his ship, the horizon's edge, and watched as the yellow sun grew larger in the distance. After 3,000 years, the Velen Dominion was finally returning to Earth. He remembered the stories his teachers told him when he was young. Earth had been a problem. A small, wet planet filled with primitive creatures who called themselves humans. They had no faster-than-light travel, no energy shields, no weapons that could scratch a Velen warship. They were insects, really. Dangerous insects who bred too fast and spread too quickly, so the Dominion did what it always did with dangerous pests. They released the Carvalhoum Plague. It was designed to kill only humans. Nothing else. Clean, efficient, and permanent. The report said 94% died in the first year. The rest would follow soon after. No species could survive such a blow. That was 3,000 years ago. Now, Rovik was here to see what remained, Commander said, a voice behind him. He turned to see Talus, his chief scientist, walking toward him with a tablet in her hands. Her scales were pale green today, which meant she was nervous. We are entering the Sol system now. I am beginning preliminary scans, Rovik nodded. What do you expect to find? Talus made a sound that might have been a laugh. Dead oceans. Ruined cities. Perhaps some lower animals that survived. The Carvalhoum Plague was very thorough, good Rovik said. The Council wants to know if Earth is ready for colonization. 3,000 years should be enough time for the planet to heal. Talus returned to her station, and Rovik continued to watch the stars. He felt nothing about what his ancestors had done. It was pest control, nothing more. The humans had been a threat, and the threat was removed. That was the way of the galaxy. The strong survived. The weak did not. An hour passed. Then two. The ship moved closer to Earth, past the outer planets and their moons. Everything looked normal. Dead. Empty. Just as expected. Then Talus made a sound he had never heard before. Something between a gasp and a scream. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking. "You need to see this." Rovik walked to her station and looked at her screens. At first, he did not understand what he was seeing. There were lights on Earth. Not small lights. Not fires or natural phenomena. Cities. Massive, glowing cities covering entire continents. Orbital stations circled the planet like metal moons. Ships moved between them. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. "That is impossible," Rovik said. "There is more," Talus whispered. She pointed to another screen. "I am detecting organized electromagnetic signals. Radio waves. Data transmissions. All of it in patterns I do not recognize." Rovik's heart began to beat faster. "Equipment malfunction. It must be. I have checked 3 times. The readings are accurate." Before Rovik could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on every wall. The navigation officer shouted from across the bridge, "Commander, multiple contacts approaching at high speed. They are coming from Earth." On the main screen, Rovik saw them. Ships. Human ships. They were sleek and angular, nothing like the primitive rockets in the historical records. They moved with a speed and precision that made Velen cruisers look like floating rocks. "Raise shields," Rovik ordered. "Charge weapons." "Commander," the weapons officer said, his voice weak, "our weapons are not responding. Something is blocking them. Our shields are down. Our engines are offline. We are dead in space." Rovik stood frozen. This could not be happening. The humans were dead. They had been dead for 3,000 years. The main screen flickered, and a new image appeared. A human face. It was a female, with dark hair and eyes that held no warmth. She wore a uniform covered in symbols Rovik did not recognize. Behind her, he could see a bridge filled with equipment far more advanced than anything on a ship. When she spoke, it was in perfect Velen language. Every word clear. Every pronunciation exact. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered human sovereign space. State your intentions." Rovik could not speak. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He had trained for first contact situations. He had studied dozens of alien species, but nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him to speak to ghosts. "I am Admiral Park Jin-ho of the Human Defense Force," the female continued. "You have 10 seconds to respond before we assume hostile intent." Talus grabbed Rovik's arm. "Say something," she hissed. "Anything." Rovik swallowed hard. "I am Commander Rovik of the Velen Dominion survey vessel Horizon's Edge. We are here on a peaceful scientific mission. We meant no offense." The human female Admiral Park did not smile. Her expression did not change at all. She simply stared at him with those cold, dark eyes. "A peaceful scientific mission," she repeated. "To survey the planet your people tried to murder 3,000 years ago. That was a different time, a different leadership." "I was not even born when we know exactly when the Carvaloon Plague was released," Admiral Park interrupted. "We know the date, the hour, the ship that delivered it. We know the names of every official who approved the operation. We have known for a very long time, Commander." Rovik felt his legs grow weak. Around him, his crew stood in terrified silence. On the screen, he could see more human ships arriving. They surrounded the horizon's edge, like predators circling wounded prey. "What do you want?" Rovik asked. Admiral Park leaned forward slightly. "What do we want?" "We want many things, Commander. Justice, answers, acknowledgement of what was done to us. But right now, in this moment, we want you to understand something very important." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was like ice. "You came here expecting to find a dead world, a graveyard, a monument to your ancestors' power. Instead, you found us, alive, waiting, and we remember everything." The screen went dark, and Commander Rovik finally understood the terrible truth. The humans had not forgotten. The humans had not forgiven. And now, after 3,000 years of preparation, the humans were ready. The ghosts of Earth had risen, and they were angry. The cell was white, completely white. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything glowed with a soft, even light that had no visible source. Rovik sat on a simple bench and stared at his hands. They would not stop shaking. It had been 6 hours since the humans captured his ship. 6 hours since armed soldiers in black armor boarded the horizon's edge and took every member of his crew prisoner. The soldiers had been efficient and professional. They did not hurt anyone. They did not speak. They simply pointed their weapons and waited for the Velen to obey. Rovik had obeyed. What choice did he have? Now he was here in this white cell, aboard a human warship called the Unyielding. He had seen the ship's name written on the walls as they brought him inside. The word meant something, he was sure. Everything the humans did seemed to mean something. A door opened in the wall. Rovik had not even seen the door until it moved. A human female walked inside. She was small and slim, with gray in her black hair and lines around her eyes. She carried a thin tablet and wore simple clothes, no uniform, no weapons. She looked like a scholar, not a soldier. "Commander Rovik," she said in perfect Velen. "My name is Dr. Kung Yuna. I am a historian. I specialize in first contact situations and interspecies relations." Rovik stood up slowly. "Where is my crew? Safe, comfortable, being treated well?" Yuna sat down on a chair that rose from the floor. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Rovik did not sit. "I demand to speak with my government." "Under galactic law?" "Galactic law." Yuna repeated the words as if they tasted strange. "You mean the laws created by the Dominion and its allies? The laws that said it was legal to release biological weapons on primitive planets? Those laws?" Rovik said nothing. Yuna looked at her tablet for a moment, then set it aside. "Let me tell you a story, Commander. 3,000 years ago, a plague fell from the sky. It came without warning. It killed without mercy. In the first month, 1 billion humans died. In the first year, 6 billion. By the end of the second year, only 400 million remained out of 8 billion, without emotion, as if she was reading from a textbook. The cities fell. Governments collapsed. For a time, it seemed like your ancestors would get their wish. Humanity would die, and Earth would be empty. But you did not die, Rovik said quietly. No, we did not. Eunice smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Some of us went underground, into bunkers built for nuclear war, into caves and tunnels and anywhere the plague could not reach. Others went to the oceans, living in sealed habitats beneath the waves. We hid, we suffered, we watched our families die, but we survived. She stood up and walked closer to Rovik. Even though she was smaller than him, he found himself stepping back. Do you know what it does to a species, Commander? To face extinction and survive? It changes them. It removes everything soft and weak. It leaves only the hard parts. The parts that refuse to break? We did not know anyone survived, Rovik said. The reports said your reports were wrong. Or maybe your ancestors simply did not care enough to check. Una returned to her chair. For the first 500 years, we focused on survival. Finding food, treating the sick, keeping our population alive. Then we found the wreckage. 3 of your survey ships crashed on Earth during the plague years. Mechanical failures, we assume. Your people did not bother to recover them. Why would they? Earth was a dead world. Nothing worth saving? Rovik felt his stomach turn cold. We studied those ships for centuries, Una continued. We learned your language, your technology, your history. We discovered why you killed us. Not because we threatened you, not because we attacked you, but because you decided we might become a problem someday. Preventive extermination, that is what your records called it. She pulled up something on her tablet and turned it toward Rovik. He saw images, human images, photographs of mass graves filled with bodies, hospitals overflowing with the dying, children lying still in their mother's arms. The images went on and on, thousands of them, each one more horrible than the last. 94%, Una said. That is a number to you, a statistic. To us, it is grandparents and parents and children. It is names and faces and stories that ended too soon. Every human alive today carries this memory. It is in our blood, our bones, our very souls. Rovik looked away from the images. He could not bear to see any more. What do you want from me? He asked. I did not do this. I was not there. No, you were not. But you came here, Commander. You came to our world expecting to find it empty. Ready for colonization? You thought you would plant your flag on our graves and call it progress. A second door opened, and another human entered. This one was a male, tall and broad, with a hard face and eyes that had seen battle. He wore a military uniform covered with medals and symbols. Admiral Park Jin-ho, Una said, Commander of the First Fleet. The Admiral did not sit. He stood with his hands behind his back and studied Rovik the way a scientist might study an insect. My great-grandmother survived the plague, Admiral Park said. His vellum was not as smooth as Una's, but his words were clear. She was 7 years old when it began. She watched her parents die. Her brothers, her friends, everyone she knew. She lived in a cave for 3 years, eating rats and drinking rainwater. When she finally emerged, she made a promise. He stepped closer to Rovik. She promised that her children and her children's children would never be helpless again, that humanity would grow strong, strong enough to face anyone who tried to hurt us, strong enough to make them regret it. We do not want war, Rovik said quickly. The Dominion has no quarrel with you. If we had known you survived, you would have come back to finish the job, Admiral Park interrupted. We intercepted your communications centuries ago. We know what the Dominion does to species. It considers threats. We know we are still on your list. He turned and walked toward the door. Send a message to your government, Commander. Tell them what you found here. Tell them Earth is not a dead world. Tell them the humans remember. And tell them we are coming. The Admiral left. Dr. Kong Yuna gathered her tablet and followed him. At the door, she paused and looked back at Rovik one last time. You asked what we want, she said. We want justice. We want acknowledgement. We want those responsible to face trial for what they did. Whether you give us those things peacefully, or we take them by force, that choice belongs to your dominion. The door closed. The white light hummed softly, and Rovik sank onto the bench, his head in his hands. Finally understanding the terrible mistake his people had made, they had tried to kill humanity. They had failed. And now, 3,000 years later, humanity was awake. Talus had always believed the Velen were the most advanced species in the galaxy. She had grown up learning about their 10,000 years of civilization, their conquests, their technologies, their rightful place as rulers of the stars. Now, walking through the human research station called New Dawn, she understood how wrong she had been. The station floated in orbit above Earth, a massive ring of metal and glass that held over 50,000 people. It was only one of hundreds of such stations circling the planet. From its windows, Talus could see Earth below, blue oceans, green forests, and cities that glowed like jewels in the night. The planet was not dead. It was more alive than anything she had ever seen. Her guide was a human female named Baisujin. She was an engineer, small and energetic, with quick hands and quicker eyes. She spoke Velen with a strange accent, but her words were always precise. This way, Sujin said, leading Talus down a long corridor. I want to show you something special. Talus followed. She had agreed to cooperate with the humans after they explained their offer. Share what you know about the Dominion. Help us understand your technology. In return, we will show you what we have built. We will show you why you should be afraid. Talus was already afraid, but she was also curious. A scientist's greatest weakness, they entered a large laboratory filled with machines Talus did not recognize. In the center of the room stood a cylinder of glowing blue light contained within a framework of crystal and metal. The light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. We call it the Prometheus engine, Sujin said, her voice filled with pride. It took us 800 years to develop. It provides unlimited clean energy by harvesting quantum fluctuations from the fabric of space itself. Talus stared at the engine. Her mind struggled to process what she was seeing. That is impossible. The mathematics alone would take. We had time, Sujin interrupted. 3,000 years of time. In motivation. Your plague taught us an important lesson, Talus. The galaxy is dangerous. If we wanted to survive, we had to become stronger than anything out there. She led Talus to another part of the laboratory. Here, rows of small containers held silver liquid that moved on its own, forming shapes and then dissolving again. Nanomedicine, Sujin explained. Microscopic machines that live in our blood. They repair damaged tissue, fight diseases, and adapt to new threats within hours. After the Carvel Plague, we swore that no biological weapon would ever hurt us again. These machines are the result. Talus touched one of the containers. The silver liquid reached toward her finger, then pulled back. Every human has these inside them. Every human, from birth to death. They are part of us now. Door opened behind them, and a male human entered. He was tall and muscular, with short hair and a scar running down his left cheek. He wore a military uniform and moved with the careful grace of a trained fighter. Captain Shin Minho, Sujin said, head of our Special Operations Division. He wanted to meet you. Minho studied Talus with cold eyes. You are the scientist from the survey ship, the one who agreed to cooperate, as Talus said. I want to understand. I want to know how you survived. You survived because we had no choice. Minho walked to a window and looked out at the stars. When your people released the plague, they expected us to die quietly. Instead, we got angry. Anger is a powerful fuel, Talus. It can push a species to do incredible things. He turned back to face her. Let me tell you about our military. Every human citizen trains for combat from the age of 15. Not because we want war, but because we learn that peace must be protected. Every city on Earth has underground bunkers that can hold its entire population. Every family has emergency supplies for a year. We are always ready, always prepared. Ready for what? Talus asked. For the day your people came back, Minho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We knew you would return eventually, either to finish what you started or to claim our world for yourselves. So we built ships, weapons, defenses. We studied every species in the Dominion and learned their weaknesses. We spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. Sujin pulled up a holographic display showing a fleet of human warships. They were beautiful in a terrifying waist-leak, angular shapes covered in weapons and armor. 300 ships in the Retribution fleet alone, she said. Each one carries the names of plague victims engraved on its hull. Millions of names. We remember every single one. Talus felt her heart's beating faster. Why are you showing me this? Why not keep it secret? Minho stepped closer to her. Because we want you to understand what you are facing. We want you to tell your commander. We want him to tell the Dominion. This is not a threat. This is a promise. If your people choose peace, we will be fair. We will negotiate. We will find a way forward. But if they choose war... He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Later that day, Talus was taken back to the holding area where Rovik was kept. She found him pacing in his cell, his scales gray with stress. When he saw her, he rushed to the barrier between them. Talus, are you hurt? What did they do to you? They showed me the truth, Talus said quietly. Rovik, we made a terrible mistake. Not you and me are ancestors. They thought they were destroying a pest. Instead, they created a monster. What do you mean? Talus told him everything. The Prometheus engine. The nanomedicine. The military. The 300 ships waiting to launch. As she spoke, she watched the color drain from Rovik's face. This cannot be real, he whispered. They were primitives. They had nothing. They had time, and hate, and the will to survive. Talus pressed her hand against the barrier. I managed to send a signal to the Dominion. A warning. I told them to stay away, to negotiate, to do anything except provoke these humans. Rovik shook his head slowly. The Council will not listen. They will see this as a challenge. They will send the fleet. Then the fleet will die. Talus closed her eyes. I have seen their weapons, Rovik. I have seen their determination. They have spent 3,000 years preparing for revenge. If the Dominion gives them an excuse to use what they have built... She did not finish. She did not need to. In his cell, Rovik finally understood the scale of the disaster. The Dominion had not killed humanity. They had forged them, hardened them, turned them into something that could not be broken and would not forgive. And now, that something was looking toward the stars with cold eyes and colder hearts. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy was ready for them. The throne room of the Velen Dominion had stood for 8,000 years. Its walls were carved from black stone, brought from the core of a dying planet. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. Statues of ancient rulers lined the path to the throne, each one a reminder of Velen power and glory. Supreme Leader Davon sat upon that throne now, surrounded by his advisors and generals. He was old, even by Velen's standards, with scales that had faded from bright blue to pale gray. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was still quick. He had ruled the Dominion for 200 years. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and expanded his empire to the edges of known space. He feared nothing. Play the message again, he commanded. The holographic projector in the center of the room flickered to life. A human female appeared middle-aged, with black hair streaked with silver and a face that showed no emotion. She wore formal robes and stood before a simple backdrop. I am Ambassador Li Heian, the human said, speaking on behalf of the United Human Government and the people of Earth. This message is for the Velen Dominion and all who serve it. Behind her names began to scroll. Human names, thousands of them, millions. They moved across the screen in an endless stream, each one representing a life lost to the Carvaloon Plague 3,000 years ago. Your people released a biological weapon on our world. You called it pest control. You called it preventive extermination. You called it necessary. We call it what it was, genocide. The murder of billions of innocent people who had done nothing to harm you. The names kept scrolling. Devon watched them with growing irritation. This was a trick. A performance designed to create sympathy. He was not impressed. This transmission contains every name we could recover, Ambassador Lee continued. Every man, woman, and child who died because of your decision. It will take 72 hours to display them all. We want you to see them. We want you to understand the scale of what you did. The message had arrived 3 days ago. The names had scrolled for exactly 72 hours, just as the human promised. When they finally stopped, the ambassador spoke again. We do not seek your extinction. We are not you, but we demand justice. The architects of the Carvaloom Plague must stand trial for their crimes. The Dominion must pay reparations to help rebuild what was lost. And you must surrender all capability to commit genocide against every biological weapon, every research facility, every scientist who knows how to create such horrors. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was like steel. If you agree to these terms, we will negotiate in good faith. We will find a path to peace. If you refuse, we will come to you, and we will take what we are owed. The message ended. The holographic image faded. Devon sat in silence for a long moment, then turned to his advisors. Opinions? General Turk, his chief military commander, stepped forward. The humans are bluffing. Our intelligence says they have perhaps a few hundred ships. We have thousands. If they attack, we will crush them. And if our intelligence is wrong? Asked Minister Vell, the head of Foreign Affairs. We thought they were dead for 3,000 years. Clearly, we have underestimated them before. We did not underestimate them, Devon said coldly. We simply failed to finish the job. A mistake we can correct. He rose from his throne and walked down the steps toward the projector. These humans think they can make demands of us. They think their little fleet and their sad stories will make us bow. They are wrong. He turned to face his court. Send a reply. Tell them the Dominion does not negotiate with resurrected vermin. Tell them their demands are rejected. Tell them that if they want war, they will find us ready. Minister Vell stepped forward hesitantly. Supreme Leader, perhaps we should consider— I have considered, Devon interrupted. For 10,000 years, the Velen have ruled this region of space. We do not submit. We do not apologize. We do not pay tribute to species we conquered. If these humans want justice, they can try to take it. They will fail, as all others have failed. The court bowed in acceptance. The message was sent. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Lee Hayan received the reply. She read it once, then handed it to the man standing beside her. General No Taeyon was 60 years old, with iron-gray hair and a face marked by decades of service. He had commanded armies and won battles on a dozen worlds. He had lost friends and soldiers and pieces of himself along the way. When he read the Dominion's response, he felt no anger, only a cold, quiet certainty. They refused, Hayan said unnecessarily. I expected they would. Taeyon folded the message and placed it in his pocket. The Velen have ruled for too long. They have forgotten what it means to face consequences. He walked to the window of the command center and looked out at the fleet assembled before him. 300 warships, the largest and most powerful ever built by human hands. Each one carried weapons that could crack a planet open. Each one was crewed by men and women whose families had survived the plague, whose ancestors had crawled out of bunkers and ruins and refused to die. General Hayan said, Is there any other way? Taeyon did not answer immediately. He thought about his grandmother, who had told him stories of the plague years when he was a child. She had been one of the last survivors who remembered life before the sickness came. She had described a world of peace and hope and possibility, a world that was destroyed in a matter of months. We offered them away, he said finally. They chose this instead. He turned to face the ambassador. Do you remember what my grandmother used to say? She said that mercy must be earned, that forgiveness cannot be given to those who do not seek it. The Dominion had 3,000 years to apologize. They never did. They never even tried. He pressed a button on his command panel, and his voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. This is General No Taeyan. The Dominion has rejected our terms. They have chosen war, so be it. All ships will proceed to Velen Prime. Rules of engagement are as follows. Military targets only. Civilian casualties are to be minimized. We are not here to commit genocide. We are here to end the capability for it. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice softened slightly. I know what this day means to all of you. I know the weight of the names we carry. Our ancestors did not survive so we could become monsters. They survived so we could build something better. Remember that. Remember who we are. Remember why we fight. He ended the transmission. Around him, the fleet began to move. 300 ships, carrying the hopes and rage of a species that refused to die. Ambassador Lee. Heian stood beside him as the first ships entered faster than light travel. Do you think we will win? She asked. Taeyan watched the stars stretch into lines as the fleet accelerated. I think we will do what we have always done, he said. We will survive. We will overcome. And we will make sure this never happens again to us or to anyone else. The fleet vanished into the void. The message had been sent. The answer had been given. Now came the reckoning. The Battle of Velen Prime lasted 6 hours. In those 6 hours, 10,000 years of Dominion supremacy came to an end. Rovik watched it all from a viewing deck aboard the human flagship. They had brought him here on purpose, he realized. They wanted him to see. They wanted him to witness the end. Of everything he knew, the Velen Defense Fleet had seemed impressive when it assembled above the homeworld. 800 warships, the pride of the Dominion, crewed by the finest soldiers in the galaxy. Rovik had felt a moment of hope when he saw them. Perhaps the humans had overestimated themselves. Perhaps the old ways would prevail. That hope died in the first. 5 minutes, the human ships moved like nothing Rovik had ever seen. They dodged missiles that should have been undodgeable. They fired weapons that cut through Velen shields like paper. They coordinated with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Each ship knowing exactly where to be and when to strike. One by one, the Velen warships fell. Some exploded. Others went dark and drifted, their crews dead or surrendered. A few tried to flee, but the human ships ran them down with impossible speed. It was not a battle. It was an execution. By the 4th hour, the Velen fleet was broken. By the 6th hour, human soldiers were landing on the surface of the homeworld. Private Yunyunji was one of those soldiers. She was 19 years old. She had trained for this since she was 15, but nothing could truly prepare someone for their first battle. As her transport descended through the atmosphere of Velen Prime, she gripped her rifle and tried to control her breathing. Around her sat 40 other soldiers. All young, all afraid, all determined. They wore black armor and carried weapons designed to be precise and non-lethal when possible. Their orders were clear: military targets only. Capture. Do not kill. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. The transport landed in the central square of the Velen capital. Youngji and her squad moved out quickly, taking cover behind fallen statues and broken walls. The fighting had already moved past this area, but scattered Velen soldiers still resisted. A bolt of energy flashed past Yanji's head. She dropped to the ground and returned fire, her rifle sending a pulse of blue light toward the shooter. The Velen soldier fell, stunned but alive. Move up. Her sergeant shouted. The Senate building is 2 blocks ahead. Yunji ran. Around her, the capital was burning. Not from human weapons. The Velen had destroyed their own defense installations, rather than let them be captured. Smoke rose from a dozen points across the city. In the distance, she could hear the sound of human ships landing reinforcements. They reached the Senate building within 20 minutes. The fighting here was fierce. Velen guards had barricaded the entrance and were firing on anyone who approached. Yunji took cover behind a fallen column and waited for orders. We can breach the west wall, her sergeant said over the radio. But there will be casualties. Hold for now. Before they could move, the main doors of the Senate building opened. A group of Velen officials emerged, their hands raised in surrender. At the front was an old Velen with faded gray scales and proud bearing. I am Supreme Leader Davon, the Old One said. "I surrender myself and my government to human authority. I ask only that you spare my people." Yunji watched as human officers stepped forward to accept the surrender. She felt ... nothing. Not triumph. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just a hollow exhaustion that went deeper than her bones. This was what victory felt like, she realized. Not glorious. Not exciting. Just tired and sad and hoping it was finally over. In the ruins of the Senate chamber, Dr. Kang Yuna stood among the victory. Human flags now hung where Dominion banners once flew. Soldiers moved through the building, securing prisoners and searching for hidden dangers. Outside, she could hear the sound of celebrations beginning, human troops cheering, singing, embracing each other. But Yuna felt no joy. She walked to a broken window and looked out at the city below. Smoke still rose from destroyed buildings. Velen civilians wandered the streets in shock. Their world changed forever. Human medics were already setting up aid stations, treating wounded soldiers from both sides. "You do not look happy," said a voice behind her. Yuna turned to see Rovik standing there, escorted by 2 guards. He looked as tired as she felt. His scales had turned almost completely gray. "Should I be?" she asked. "You won. Your enemy is defeated. Justice is served." Rovik walked slowly to stand beside her at the window. "Is that not what you wanted?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. "I wanted many things. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted the truth to be known. I wanted those responsible to face consequences." She sighed. "But I never wanted this. War, death, suffering, even for those who hurt us. Then why did you fight?" "Because you gave us no choice." Yuna turned to face him. "We offered peace. We asked only for justice. Your leader refused. Your fleet attacked. What were we supposed to do? Die quietly as you expected us to the first time?" Rovik had no answer. "This is what I feared most," Yuna continued. "Not that we would lose, but that we would win. That we would become so focused on strength and survival that we would forget how to be anything else." She looked out at the burning city. "Are we still the people our ancestors hoped we would become? Or did your plague kill that version of us along with everything else?" 3 days later, Ambassador Li Heian addressed the galaxy. Her image appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds, broadcast through every communication network the Dominion had controlled. She stood in the ruins of the Velen Senate, surrounded by human soldiers and captured officials. "To all species of the galaxy," she began, "I speak to you as the voice of humanity. For 3,000 years, we were believed to be dead, extinct, erased from existence by a biological weapon released by the Velen Dominion. As you can see, those reports were greatly exaggerated." She paused and a sad smile crossed her face. "We did not seek this war. We offered peace. We asked only for justice, for acknowledgement of what was done to us, an assurance that it would never happen again. The Dominion refused. They chose violence. They lost." She gestured to the ruins around her. "The Velen Dominion is no more. Its leaders will stand trial for crimes against humanity and against all species they have wronged over the centuries. Its military capability has been dismantled. Its weapons of mass destruction have been destroyed. The threat they pose to the galaxy is ended." Heian stepped forward, her expression becoming more serious. "But we have not come here as conquerors. We do not seek an empire. We do not wish to rule over others as the Velen once did. We have seen what that kind of power does to a species. We have experienced what happens when one group decides another has no right to exist. We refuse to become what we defeated." She took a breath. "Humanity is taking its seat among the stars. We offer peace, trade, and cooperation to any species that desires it. We will be fair. We will be just. We will help build a galaxy where no species has to fear extermination simply for existing." Her voice hardened. "But make no mistake. We remember what was done to us. We will always remember, and we are watching. If any species chooses the path the Dominion choseth, Any government decides that genocide is an acceptable solution to their problems, they will find us standing in their way. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes carrying 3,000 years of pain and survival and determination. We are humanity. We survived. We endured. We are here, and we will never be victims again. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species who had lived in fear of the Dominion for centuries began to breathe easier. New possibilities opened. New futures became possible, and on 100 worlds. In 1,000 languages, the same question was whispered: what have the humans become? The answer would take generations to discover. Perhaps humanity would heal, would move beyond the trauma that had shaped them, would become something greater than their suffering. Perhaps they would remain warriors forever, always watching, always waiting, never able to forget. Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget the day the humans returned, the day the ghosts of Earth proved they were very much alive and very, very angry.